Welcome into Clips and Dips, Season 2, Episode 45. I'm Adam Moslin. We got Chuck Mockler and Will Updike with us here. And a very good show for you guys. Coming up later on, we got some bold, hot take, steel, lead pipe predictions for second half action with this Clippers team as we are in the second half of the season now. We'll talk about that. We got an update on the Give No Quarter stats, too, thanks to one of our listeners. We'll also take questions as we submitted some or asked for some earlier at Clippers Pod on Twitter. We'll get to those, but guys, let's start with this. Chuck, how we doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Clippers heading into the road trip off on a good foot. It was sunny today in LA, which I feel like we haven't had. So, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good.
Big Will?
Doing well. Yeah. Ready for ready for the Clippers to continue to be underlooked. No all-star selections, road trip, right where we want to be.
Well, I'm going to see if I can bring both of you guys down with this news. Kawhi Leonard, not a Western Conference all-star starter.
Yeah.
That just came out about 45 minutes ago before we recorded this. A little bit disappointing, Chuck. It's predictable. It's not shocking. It's not surprising. But it still is disappointing, and I'm a little bit vexed and irked by it, as you can tell.
Yeah, I was getting an irked vibe from you. If you can see this over on youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast, Adam has a bit of an irked vibe, which is fair. It's fair to be irked by this. Kawhi's been playing on a whole nother planet on both sides of the ball. It's the thing we talk about. Guys who play well on both sides of the ball are held up to an incredibly higher standard than guys who are, and I don't mean quote unquote just offensively elite. But no, it sucks. I wish Kawhi was a starter, but also take the rest, man. Maybe pull a Jimmy Butler. Just don't even play. Just hang out. Take the time.
Will, how you feeling about it? I know this news just dropped on you.
Shocked.
Man, I'm really disappointed. And I know like Kawhi is probably the last guy in the league to really care about this. He might even be grateful to not have to go through the whole pomp and circumstance for the All-Star game as a starter. But it just does beg the question. I mean, it's got to be more than just raw numbers, right? I just don't get what we're doing here. I understand that we'll probably never have an All-Star game without LeBron, except for that 1 year where he had the ankle and he kind of barely played. But I just don't get what we're doing here, man. We're talking about the fourth best team in the Western Conference, one of the hottest teams over the last 30 games, 25 games.
Half the season, yeah.
It's I understand like these other guys are putting up bigger numbers. I understand and commend Kevin Durant for like committing to defense more, but
it's LeBron
some of this has to be impact. And I mean, that's the thing, right? I feel like if you're going to say someone was snubbed, you got to talk about who shouldn't be in there. And I mean, yeah, I guess I'm leaning LeBron. I mean, the Suns are, they've turned things around seemingly. But yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it.
I think the reason I'm so irritated is there's 3 guys in the starting lineup that Kawhi could easily be starting over. LeBron, KD, and Luka Doncic. Going off numbers, going off record, going off a defensive impact, which people seem to discount completely. Kawhi Leonard is a top 75 player ever, having his best regular season to this point.
And he's playing.
And he's not going to be an all-star game starter, where on the year, he's shooting 44% from 3, 52% from the field, getting 24 points per game. But then last 22 games where the Clippers are the hottest team in the league, they've only lost 3 of those. When Kawhi has been out there in the last 22 games he has played, they've lost 3 times. He is shooting 50% from the field and 51% from 3. And oh, by the way, since November 17th, I believe, with the new starting lineup, they are 9 points per 100 possessions better defensively with Kawhi Leonard on the court. They go from being a top 3 level defense to being a bottom 5 level defense without him. So if that's not enough of an impact, and I understand there's 3 different phases of the voting, you have half of it being fan voting, I believe, a quarter media, a quarter player, but I just don't understand how a guy on a team with a record that is 4th in the West and just a game and a half back of being first, and you don't get him in over LeBron James, over Luka, over KD. I guess it is just a popularity contest and nothing more, but I do want to point this out. That's fine. They want to do it like this, but when it comes down to Hall of Fame resume at the end of all this stuff, and we know Kawhi Leonard's a first ballot Hall of Famer,
Sure.
but when you are comparing players and accolades, do not put much stock in all-star voting. Never do it. You want to know what the best moment ever in an all-star game was? Magic Johnson, who was out of the league in 92, getting to play and having a ridiculous performance. The all-star game has become more and more of a joke. And it's one of the few things that I agree with when it comes to old-timers and old man yelling at clouds about the all-star game and how there's no defense played and how nobody cares. I actually agree with that. We've gotten a couple good ones the last decade and a half total. One of them was in 2020 when Kawhi was the first to win the Kobe Bryant All-Star Game MVP award when he went off and they changed the rules and it actually worked in that game and it was competitive down the stretch and it was the Elam rules, I think they called it, with scoring totals per quarter and then you add them all up and you got to win by 24 or whatever it was. It's become such a gimmick. It's really hard to take seriously. And I know they're going back to East versus West, and that's cool. And they're not having the schoolyard playground type of pick your own squad situation like we've had the last 3 years. But it's tough to stomach if you're a Clipper fan and seeing just how good Kawhi Leonard has been this season. Again, top 75 player ever, having his best regular season ever, and he can't be a starter.
I feel like you really worked yourself up from not really worried about it to just
the more I thought about it, Chuck,
completely disgusted by the idea.
Oh, what does Costanza say? It's like an onion. The more you peel it, the more it stinks.
I mean, it sucks for Kawhi, but again, I like Will's point. Like he doesn't care. It kind of proves Kawhi's point too of like, even if I play all these games, you guys still don't care, right? Like, even if I do everything you guys ask me to do, which is play every game and play at a high level, which is what he's done all year, no one cares. So I mean, it sucks, but
I just want to know, like, who's actually voting in this? Like, if the fan vote is half the vote,
it's the dogs from the dogs playing poker picture. That's what they do after they pick.
Is it just? I don't know. I just don't get what their criteria is.
Well, the fan voting definitely skews things because then you get situations where Zaza Pachulia was voted in 1 year, or Andrew Wiggins. Was it last year or the year before where people felt like he shouldn't have been an all-star, and didn't he get voted in as a starter?
Yeah.
But if you get a vote and you got a big enough fan base, it can warp things. But
where was Margot Robbie on this? Where was
Curry did not make Steph Curry is not an all-star game starter. So my point is, as much as we say it's a popularity contest, SGA got in rightfully so over Steph Curry. He's having a much better season.
That's true.
Why couldn't Kawhi get in over LeBron, who's having a much better season, or over KD, where record-wise, and if you look at defensive impact, they're like 1 point per 100% possessions better, Phoenix, with Kevin Durant on the floor, compared to Kawhi being 9 points better. He is holding it down defensively for them. Luka Doncic, you know where he's at defensively. He's amazing, and offense does outweigh defense, of course, and I think you can have a bigger impact on the game, but when things are that close, it's got to be Kawhi over all 3 of those guys to me.
He needs to post more snappy Instagram captions, and he would probably get more votes, but not Kawhi style.
The good news is maybe by the time he finds out, it's right before tip-off in Boston on Saturday, and that gets him worked up.
Yeah, he's not going to know. He's not going to know for 72 hours. Speaking of Boston and the upcoming trip, the injury report was released for Clippers versus Raptors on tomorrow, Friday. No Paul George on the injury report. Surprised, not surprised? How are we feeling? Will, you look a little concerned?
I'm very surprised.
Okay.
I'm very surprised. I guess. I mean, I guess 3 days rest is a decent amount of rest. But just the way that they had to actively manage his minutes in game because the groin injury was that big of an issue. That's a little worrisome to me. Not to be like too much of a doom and gloomer about it, but that's quite the turnaround from something that was like clearly significant enough that Paul George, was coming to the training staff saying, "Hey, this is bothering me so much," and it necessitated a management of his minutes in what was a tight game for the most part. I don't know. I really again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what to make of this, but it does seem kind of quick. I don't know. Where are you at, Adam?
Well, were either he or Kawhi on the last 2 injury reports? Paul George against the Lakers or Kawhi against Brooklyn when he had the flu. So yeah. I'm not that surprised by it. I am concerned because the type of injury, a groin injury. Yes. He re-aggravated it against Brooklyn, and it's one of those things that can linger. It's tough to manage, and I don't want him to play through it if he's just trying to tough it out to prove a point that, hey, this year's different. We're taking the regular season more seriously. That's great, but you still have to strike that balance of knowing when you're pushing something over the edge and past a threshold where you could seriously exacerbate an injury, and therefore it's affecting your ceiling for this season and where this team can go.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. Just the prove a point injury. Right, where it's like, no, who did a lot of those was Landry Shamet. Landry Shamet would have exchanges sometimes with people where he was like, I heard, like I noticed you had a wrap on your wrist. Are you okay? He'd be like, wrist is fine. He'd be like, is it bothering you? And he'd just go, no, it's fine. It's like, you don't have to prove anything to us, man. It's okay if you're hurt. Sit down or something. The schedule is kind of rough for this road trip as well. The Clippers have a back-to-back. Raptors Celtics starts Friday.
Share the screen.
Share screen or it didn't happen. Or it's not going to happen.
No free screen shares. All right. Yeah, let me get this going.
Look, you got to save players from themselves. Only Paul George and the medical staff. Really, it comes down to Paul George telling them exactly how he's feeling and being as truthful as possible and not just trying to be a hero or tough it out to a point where it actually worsens to then he's out for weeks. They're already without Ivica Zubac. But my point would be, if you got to rest Paul George for a week so he doesn't end up missing a month, you do it. Now, it's a difficult thing to manage, though, like I said, and to know exactly how far you can push things. So we'll see.
Yeah, so we got Raptors Celtics back-to-back. That's probably the toughest part of the schedule, which we're going to talk about. Cavs, Wizards. The Wizards, Pistons, love those 2 games being in the middle of this road trip, if I'm being totally honest. That's a nice, no disrespect, I guess, to those franchises, but that's a nice 2 middle 2 to have. Then gets rough. Heat, Hawks back-to-back, which is part of a 3-4 to end the trip. So you go Pistons, Heat, Hawks, 3-4 to end the trip, and you start the trip with 3-5. So it's bookended by kind of some rough scheduling for the Clippers. But do you guys agree that the hardest part is these first 2 games, maybe opponent-wise?
Yeah, I know the hardest game to win is the Boston game, not just because it's Boston, but because you're in Boston and second night of a back-to-back.
Mm-hmm. And the Raptors are just annoying to play.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be an easy game either. Because
the Cavs are serious too. Like it's a bit of a gauntlet. I mean, they're 8-2 in their last 10. They are in the same position in the East as the Clippers are in the West. Like
that's a good call.
I think the Cavs have won something like 13 of 15 overall.
Jesus.
Even without Evan Mobley. even without Darius Garland. They have turned a corner this season when it was a little bit sketchy early on.
Yeah, that's a good call. What are we looking for in this Raptors game? We won by 6 after like the fastest paced game of the year. Emmanuel quickly is out for this one with a thigh contusion, which is big for the Raptors. He kind of killed the Clippers last time, especially at the rim. Will, what are you looking for in this Raptors game? What do we want to see from the Clippers sans Zoo?
I mean, I'd like to see things look a lot more buttoned up than what we saw in that Lakers game, especially on the road. I think the composure needs to be a lot tighter overall. It's hard to ascertain whether Clippers at or Lakers at Clippers is a home game or an away game, but you don't win that game, I don't think, on the road. If that makes sense. Like I think there was too many inconsistencies, and they did turn it on and clamp things down there at the end. But I don't think that's a game that you win in an away stadium. So the execution needs to be a lot better. It's another reason why I'm kind of concerned about the Paul George thing, because while he had his moments, he overall was not great in that game. And I don't know if some of that was due to the growing thing, if there was some, if he was a little tentative there, but like the execution needs to be a lot better. And I think that this is going to be a great test for this team, because while they have been like stacking up wins and stuff, I feel like as though the last 3 games have been a little sloppier.
Yeah, I agree with Will. That was a mixed bag against the Lakers. You look at it, on one hand, the Clippers shot 60% from the field. They were hot again from the outside. Last 11 games, guys, they're shooting 47% from 3. It's unbelievable.
Insanity.
But
defensively slipping, though.
Yes.
Last 15 games, they're 23rd on defense. That's getting to be a much bigger sample size now.
Kissing the bottom 5 right there.
I think most of it is just human nature. Because their offense, they've had the best offense since they've gone on this run with the new starting lineup where they're 25-7 their last 32 games. And therefore you have a letdown on the other end because you know you can score whenever you want. Because obviously they've had moments where they lock down that 22-0 run. They don't give up a point in 5.5 minutes against Brooklyn, for example. And last time out against Toronto, that was a 2-point game with 10 minutes left at home.
Yeah.
And it was Ivica Zubac who was playing down the stretch of that one and helping them out. And eventually they would pull away and win 126-120, but by no stretch of the imagination was it an easy victory. Mm-hmm. And Toronto was on the second night of a back-to-back after getting screwed with the 23-3 or 22-3
yeah, that was
free
that
throw
rant.
disparity.
Hell yeah.
So it's going to be a tough team to play. Emmanuel quickly being out, obviously, that should make things a little bit easier, at least when it comes to slowing down this Toronto team that was playing at a really fast pace, especially in the half court against the Clippers. They were just really decisive with all their passes. They were crisp. They were on point. Guys were playing with a lot of purpose out there. So, yeah, the Clippers do need to tighten things up. To Will's point, they haven't looked like a dominant team consistently defensively, like I think they're going to have to be on this road trip. At some point, the defense has to get much better. And if they're playing like a team that's bottom 10 defensively, I don't know if that's going to be good enough regardless of what their offense does, because I don't expect them to continue to be this hot like we've seen recently, especially from the outside.
Yeah, this efficiency is crazy. It feels like this is a pattern. Not a pattern, I shouldn't say that, but we've seen the Clippers shoot absurdly efficient in the 2-1-3 era, right? Like we talked about it a couple episodes ago when we had how many guys shooting 40% that one year from 3. Even the Doc years, they were always like that. That last year, they were crazy efficient from 3. So that's a good point. And the defense is going to have to get against the Raptors, and then we roll right into a game against the Celtics where I mistakenly looked up the stats from the last time we played them, which was a nightmare. There was no Kawhi. We got smoked 145-108. Felt like I blacked out during that period of time. What can they even take from that last matchup heading into this one without Zoo on the night where I assume everyone's going to play, because no one's on the injury report for the first game. So that would imply that everyone's playing the second. right? I don't know.
We'll see.
I think this game, I think the odds are obviously very stacked against you in this one. I think that makes the Raptors game a must win. But I mean, you're on no rest playing a team that's lost one time at home. I mean, it's kind of the same as the Raptors thing, right? Like, the execution just needs to be on another level. And without Ivica Zubac, like the margin for error is really, really slim. And we would need to see, I mean, if they have any chance of winning this game, we need to see a completely different defensive team than we've seen in the last 5 games. Like I just don't see any other way through the Celtics. And quite frankly, like if we're looking ahead to the postseason or whatever, I don't see any way through the Nuggets. Like there's a lot of teams that if this isn't a lot better from where it is right now, like it doesn't matter how good the season has been. It doesn't matter how good offensively our big three has been. There's one thing that this team can do to sort of overpower a lot of the other teams that frankly have more star power and more continuity. And it's really on the defensive end. And, if Paul George isn't at 100%, I don't know who's picking up the slack, to be perfectly honest with you. Terrence Mann can only do so much. Kawhi Leonard can do so much. Mason Plumlee, I mean, God bless him. He's trying.
Love the guy.
Hopefully Daniel Tice, he's got the inside script on the Celtics. So, maybe he can have a good outing, but it's going to be tough, man. This is, like I said, I think that this game, I don't want to call it a scheduled loss, but like it makes that Raptors game a must win, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Boston is easily at this point the best team in the East, maybe the best team in the league, not just because of their home court advantage and their record there and only losing once to Denver recently, but they consistently bring it on both ends. And the Clippers got completely outworked in that game against Boston. It wasn't some fluky thing where Boston just, shot a high percentage, which they did. They hit 25 3-pointers, but they were quicker to lose balls. They had 15 offensive rebounds on the Clippers in a game where Big Zoo had 5 offensive rebounds by himself. He had 16 and 10. They're not going to have him. And they can go 5 out because they start 5 out in their starting 5 now. So if you aren't sound on rotations, that's how you get a team that lights you up with 25 3-pointers as they did. And they're going to get stops because last 15 games, Boston doesn't have that slippage like the Clippers have. They're third defensively last 15 games overall. So they're not having that issue. And I guess the Clippers now are 20th. An update there defensively last 15 games. But as good as the Clippers are offensively, they're going to have to get stops because Boston is doing it on both ends at an extremely high level right now.
And we might need Kawhi to have double-digit rebounds again. Tyson Plumlee had 4 combined rebounds against
That was
the
a
Lakers.
brutal game from them.
I mean, we know who they're going against, obviously, in that Lakers who's down low. It's a big team, but we need the complete opposite from those 2 guys. It's obviously not all on them. As Will pointed out, we need great execution from the top 3 guys. And then we need everyone to have a good game. We need Amir to keep playing good defense. We need Russ to be the good Russ experience. Keep making good decisions with the ball in his hand. Bring the energy up if it's down because they're going to be tired after that Raptors game. Who is our players of the game for both of these? We're going to do one player for both games. Who's going to have a good 2-game stretch to get the Clippers off on the right foot on the Grammy trip?
All right, I'll go first. I'll go with T-Man, who is shooting over 50% from 3 in 2024. It was funny on Podcast P, they were talking about the slump he was in, and this was right after the calendar turned over and Terrence Mann was showing signs of life. And I guess Paul George told him, in 2024, we shooting the shit out of the ball. And just to try to get his confidence up. And it's happened. 47% from 3 for the team the last 11 games. And Terrence Mann has been really good and gotten off to a couple of quick starts. When the Clippers have started slow, he's been that spark with the starting lineup. Yeah. Especially against Brooklyn, down 16-0. But he also, I think, had 7 points in the first quarter against the Lakers. He's been good. The confidence it looks like he's completely back. And he almost had the dagger that just rimmed out against the Lakers from 3 also in that ball game in the 4th.
Will, player of the games.
I'm going to go Norman Powell. And I know that I just talked a lot about how important the defense is going to be for the Clippers. I think if Norm Powell can really keep things going, and I mean, he has to bare minimum help that second unit tread water against the second units for the Raptors and the Celtics. But if they can gain a little bit of momentum and ground there, I think that could go a long way. So I kind of tend to like guys who come off the bench and light it up on road trips. I feel like that's the kind of guy who can get things going. So I'm going to go with Norman Powell.
I'm going to go. That's a good pick. Great pick. This is a lazy pick, but I'm going with Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is going to he's going to have a 2-game stretch to hopefully show people why he should have been a starter. He doesn't talk about it really. He's going to have 2 elite games. We're going to see the crazy percentages. We're going to see him guard Jason Tatum. Some are saying Kawhi is good. So I'm going Kawhi Leonard for over these 2 games. Really hope we win that Raptors game. You're totally right, Will, about that being a must win. But here we are, and here's to the rest of the trip going well. I don't know.
What's your guys' predictions for record on this trip, in the 7-game road trip? Because Coach Lou told Carlo Jimenez pregame that they put a number on it, and the goal is to go 6-1.
I was going to think
5-2 at worst. He said the goal is to go 6-1.
I'd go 5-2. That's what I was going to think. Because I was like, and I understand how it's going to sound. You got 2 wins in Detroit and the Wizards. There's 2. I think you can scrape around 3 other ones. I think they can figure those out.
I'm glad that they are setting a higher standard, and it's a 6-1 type goal for them. But I hope I'm wrong. I'm going to go 4-3.
Still not bad. Will?
I don't know. Like, looking at the rest makes this really difficult for me. I guess I'm gonna be optimistic, and I'll go 5-2.
Hell yeah, 5-2. Welcome to the 5-2 club. All right, let's hope they can do it. Let's hope the Clippers get it right. Let's hope all 3 of us are wrong.
I couldn't get into the 5-2 club.
You had a chance. Coming up, we're gonna answer the best questions we got over on Twitter from Clippers fans. That's at ClippersPod. If you would like to tweet at us. Also, if you want to watch us, you can find us at youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. That's been fun. There's been an ad break. If you're listening, ads have been loud. Go ahead and turn it down. We got ads coming up, and then Clippers questions in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into Clips and Dip, your favorite Clippers podcast. Just want to shout out everyone watching this on YouTube. Thank you so much. You can find us over on YouTube at Clippers Podcast, which if you're watching this, you already know. This is more for the audio listeners. Anyways, looking ahead, we're going to talk about some questions. We asked for those over on Twitter. That's at Clippers Pod. Chuck, what do we got?
We got some great ones today. Daniel Perez has a question here. This kind of goes off of what we were just talking about. Aside from injury, Daniel asks, any concerns as we get closer to the playoffs and winning our first championship? Or as PG says, are we in the driver's seat? If you're a real Clippers fan, that quote doesn't make you feel good. But I think it's kind of what we just talked about, right? It's the defensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball is kind of the biggest thing they need to get figured out. Offensively, I don't really have a lot of complaints, and we're going to talk about some personnel stuff. But Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's defense. You know, they had 15 turnovers against the Lakers and 7 in the fourth quarter where it looked like they lost focus. I think you mentioned it earlier, but Coach Lou brought up how, you know, without LeBron James out there, he felt like there was a little bit of a letdown. I thought so too, and that's part of the mixed bag in that game. There were some positives, and I think the intent from PG and Kawhi to go at Anthony Davis was low-key special. They both had moves on him in the post and went at him for dunks and layups. Even with that groin, Paul George got by him for a dunk. Kawhi Leonard had a crazy layup in the lane on him, and then that little pirouette in the fourth quarter for his only field goal on AD where he lost him and pretty much all the Lakers. But that's needed against the Lakers. You know, they had 68 points in the paint. That was a season high for the Clippers. So that's, very much encouraging. But if they do end up locking up in the first round, you can't settle for mid-range shots, even as good as they are in that area, because the Lakers have better personnel to guard those two guys, and I'm sure they're still getting ready to make a move. But overall turnovers, defense, and just a little bit more consistency. And some of that is natural. It comes with more reps out there with this new squad. So I'm not going to be overly critical, but yeah, there's things to work on.
And with the road trip too, I think that makes like the consistency part hard, right? Like we've heard Paul George talk about how like, you're together and you're really in the trenches together, but it's also the scheduling for this road trip is rough. Will, do you have anything to add to the concerns?
No, I think that makes sense. I guess I do still worry about some of the size matchups, but I think we have to wait. I have to wait for my final ruling on that until we see if Ivica Zubac's back and if this team ends up trying to pick up another wing at the deadline. But the way that they have been flummoxed by some bigger teams, I do think that's a concern. But yeah, it's still a wait and see for me. It's not like it's not the sky isn't falling yet. Yeah, I'm not as worried as say Joseph Ryan Ward about the
Yeah,
he's worried they're going to win too many games, and his 14-6 prediction over a 20-game stretch isn't going to come true.
It didn't. He already got it wrong. They were 15-3 in that thing.
He got cooked, Joseph.
He wasn't optimistic enough. Optimus Prime Rib asks, I love that name.
Great name.
So good. How big of a deal is it for the team's title chances if they are not a top 3 seed? Let's say they stay at 4. It doesn't mean they aren't as good as the teams above them since they got a late start because of the hardened adjustment period and losing streak. Adam, you're a seeding is a very big deal guy, which makes sense. Where are you at? How big of a deal is it for them to not be a top 3 seed, not top 4?
I think 4 and 3 is a completely different ballpark. Sorry, Adam.
Well, which is why I like that they separate it. Yeah.
Well, I think historically there have been 2 teams in the last 50 or 60 years outside the top 3 to win the championship. So there's precedent. It does matter. I will say this though, because schedules, records are so injury influenced in today's modern NBA. And I mean, over the last couple of years where there's so many guys out consistently, they may not be as representative of how good that team is. And I wouldn't be shocked if for the first time in a long time, you do see a team that's below a top 3 seed win it all. For example, the Clippers were the 4th seed in 2021, and I think they were on their way to winning it all. So it may not be as imperative as it used to be with needing to get that top 3 seed. But ask me again when we know the matchup. So if they have a better matchup in the 4 or 5, and then their bracket's better, it could be beneficial.
That's fair. Will, are you super worried about the top 3 seed?
I mean, it just depends. Like I think what Adam brought up a really great point that if I just think it depends, I guess, on what the final seeding ends up being, because I would say generally there's a world of difference between the 3 seed and the 4 seed. You obviously are signed up for a more difficult first round matchup. And then in the second round, I mean, you got to go through the best team. So I think that in a lot of years that would be a huge thing. Like last year where Denver held down the 1 spot. I mean, I think your chances of getting out of the second round are pretty bad if that's the matchup. If it stays the Thunder or maybe even the Timberwolves, I feel like that becomes less. That becomes less of a big deal. Not a knock on either one of those teams. They just don't quite have the playoff acumen.
Kind of a knock, but
which isn't to say that they couldn't beat the Clippers. But I it's not the matchup I'm the most worried about. I would say
it's like a doorbell ditch,
Ding dong ditch. Yeah.
But it's kind of pick your poison right now for the Clippers. It's with the standings as they are today on January 25th. I mean, would you rather play the Suns or would you rather play the Pelicans? And I honestly might say the Suns.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Yeah, I think it is really important, but Adam, I really like what you pointed out with the rest and things like that, where that has changed so much that I think, as you're right, as it gets as low as 4 for me to really believe that. Like if the Clippers fell to 5, something has gone I don't know, horribly wrong, but pretty wrong if the Clippers fall down to 5.
I mean, we have a 3-game lead. I mean, yeah,
Right.
something's
would
going
have to
wrong.
go horribly wrong. So
They didn't go 5-2 on the road trip.
we don't even talk about in a couple months.
No.
Are
Are all 17 games on the road in March, by the way?
Yeah, they're all roadies. But no, this is a good question. Definitely something to keep an eye on. And then Snow had one addition. Do you think we'd be the top seed if we would have made the Harden trade in the offseason instead of 4 games in? I don't know if we're the top seed. I think things go so differently. You don't just copy and paste the schedule. You don't just copy and paste like the results like 4 games early.
Look, this thing felt so inevitable that I think I mean, obviously it would have been great to get a training camp with James. Maybe he comes into the season a little bit more game ready. But the thing is like they were always going to have to be tested at a game level. You know, they weren't. You know, the amount of games that they would gain is a little bit negligible to me. And maybe you still have the same losing streak, but it starts at the beginning of the season. That kind of leaves a different taste in your mouth. You know, if you go 0-6, if you haven't won a game, like that feels a little different. And I don't know that would affect the mentality or anything, but I don't think it's a world of difference, to be perfectly honest. They were going to go through skids. They were going to go through ups, and, you know, none of this stuff, like I said, it has to be game tested. So I don't think that like a training camp would have made a world of difference personally.
I like the fact that the Clippers faced adversity earlier in the season, that 6-game losing streak, testing the locker room, testing the chemistry on this team and how guys view one another. But I'm going to say this. I'm pretty damn sure the difference in getting James Harden in the summer or after the first couple of weeks of the season was Terrence Mann.
Great call.
So you're talking about losing Terrence Mann to get Harden earlier. I don't like that. I'd rather get Harden a little bit later and hold on to Terrence Mann, because I'm pretty sure that if they have given up Mann, they would have made that trade earlier in Philadelphia.
I don't like that. That is exactly what Lawrence Frank, I hope, said to Daryl Morey when he asked for Terrence Mann. All right, I've been reading all these questions. Will, what is this next question we have on the breakdown that both of you read, which I appreciate and know?
Venkata Magnamuri, sorry about that. If I pronounced that wrong, says, anyway, the Clippers make a move because a big earthquake happened yesterday before deadline day, like a center or forward like Robert Williams or Bojan Bogdanovic or DFS or Jacob or Jonas. A lot of names in there. Charles,
I think Robert Williams is out for the season.
Correct, but that would be a very Clippers trade.
I'm not trading anything. Yeah.
No. So I would say no, but then the earthquake happened, which I do think does play a part here. Something is maybe afoot. Who knows?
Something is born out of this earthquake.
Hey, I hope not, man. If something bad is coming if something's born out of an earthquake. But
another San Andreas movie.
Yeah, not a bad movie. Practical effects pretty crazy in that movie. I don't know. I think they're gonna do their due diligence, but Zoo's absence is at a weird time, I think, too, to kind of it makes the team look a lot smaller, obviously, as we've talked about. Even when he's healthy, there is some concern, you know, with our wings. Law Murray brought up a good thing on Twitter, how Amir Coffey, like, is deceptively, he has a shorter wingspan than you think he does. So when he's out there, he's tall, but like he has a shorter wingspan, and Terrence has a kind of the short wingspan too. So someone with more, you know, I hate to use this comparison, maybe someone like a Batum or a Covington. I'm not saying they should go get those guys or they shouldn't have traded those guys or anything like that, but someone like that could help the Clippers. I don't see them being able to part with anybody to get that without losing someone who's going to help keep things going smoothly with Zoo being out.
I'm in a real rock.
Like if they could do like Bones and PJ, I would hate to lose Bones. But like that would make me feel more comfortable than it was someone who's playing in the rotation right now. But I don't know if that's possible.
I'm in between a rock and a hard place with this. I think someone like
we just talked about a rock movie, or
yes, exactly.
About the Earth.
Nice. I think someone like Dorian Finney-Smith would be perfect. I think that's the kind of guy that you need. I mean, I don't think the Clippers can get into Bruce Brown's sweepstakes because I think there's just going to be a lot of suitors for that. But I'm also of the mind that like I'm not giving. I just really don't think I'm giving up the 2030 to make a move around the margins. And I'm out on a center, and I'm out on a center unless we know that Zoo isn't coming back, and then that changes everything. Obviously,
4 rostered centers would be crazy.
It's absurd. It's absurd. So that kind of even like rules out Olynyk for me. I like Olynyk, but I just would rather have another like true forward. Somebody a little bit more mobile. Would I give up a player? You got to give a guy. I mean, if you're not giving a pick, you got to give a guy for one of these guys. Man, I guess maybe Bones. It hurts though.
So the other part of the question we got too is, Adam, if the Clippers get Olynyk, does that move raise the floor substantially? Calvin Hadley asked this.
Raise the floor substantially?
Yes. Ceiling,
it could,
we all know what
if they get him soon enough. The trade deadline is February 8th. So you get him and then still are without Ivica Zubac for a couple more weeks, likely.
Yeah.
How much can he help you there? He can help. I like Kelly Olynyk. My point would be, though, they need to be better internally. Mason Plumlee and Daniel Tice just have to play better. Sometimes that's the solution. I've said this about the Lakers recently. I don't know if there's a guy out there that can magically save their season. They just have to play better. And Mason Plumlee and Daniel Tice, we know they're both capable of doing so. It'll be interesting to see against a smaller Raptors team how much run they get. Ivica Zubac was able to close out that game. He's having his best year. So I'm still interested in a guy that can play the 4 or the 5 to really solidify things. But I like what
Kelly
Will
Olynyk
said.
actually that guy, though?
Well, compared to having to give up the 2030 for Dorian Finney-Smith, I would rather just get Kelly Olynyk. Because
who plays next to him though in the front court? Like I don't see the fit, especially in any minutes where Russ is also out there.
Well, that is a good point, but he can shoot. He can.
Yeah, he is shooting. He is shooting 40% on the season, but it's on less than 2 attempts a game.
That's fine. I mean, we have a career full of data where he's at 37% from the outside. He should be around 38% if you bring him in. Plus, he'll likely get even more open shots on this Clippers team. I'm not that worried about it. But to what you said, you got to bring in a guy. If you don't bring in a guy that can shoot, who's coming off the bench, with Russ also coming off the bench, that's problematic. Yeah. Then you're always running into situations.
It's untenable to me.
Yeah, then it maybe lowers the ceiling as opposed to.
And I also think with the Olynyk thing, again, this all changes if Zoo is here, if Zoo can't come back rather. But like one of the centers got to go if we bring in Olynyk.
Right.
One of the centers got to go.
I'm kind of against Olynyk because I don't like Gonzaga guys, but that has nothing to do with how he plays.
Chet sucks.
I didn't say that. This question is going to hurt Adam's feelings. It's from Rosetta Stone. Some elite names.
Wow.
They
smart fans out there. This show.
a lot of geniuses who follow us on Twitter. I became a huge Bones Highland fan. What are the team's plans for him? Is he watching, learning, and preparing to play in the future? Or is my greatest fear of him being trade bait a reality? Adam, as the president, as the holder of the Skeleton Key Club, what do we think?
I hope he's a part of the future. I think that's why they brought him in. They obviously haven't nailed enough of these drafts, so why not have a reclamation project with a guy that does have potential and a really high ceiling and see what a change of scenery does for him? And overall, as a Clipper, in limited time, granted, he's been really good. And he has shown flashes this season. He was getting 17 points multiple times. He had a 20-point game early on. You could see it. He was on the come, and it's disappointing that he has on the come. It's an
I
adage.
don't know what
It's
that
an axiom.
means. What does that mean?
Rosetta Stone it. I don't
Oh man,
put it into Google.
I'm not use incognito when you Google that. No, I see what you're saying. He looked like he was part of the future, right? Like, and I think I like this point. Is he watching, learning, and preparing to play in the future? Yes, that is absolutely happening. I think he's watching and he's learning 100%. And I think he's learning how to prepare as if his number might be called. Because that's what's been instilled in Clippers guys recently.
Yeah. I think to me, what's been really really reassuring about Bones is, we know that things didn't end well in Denver, right? Like there was sort of some friction there. We know that Bones came into this season thinking that, he could be sort of the second up ball handler and had been preparing all summer for that and ready for that. And I think despite all of that, post-trade, I mean, just the way that Bones champions every single guy on this team, the way that he's like one of the first people up on the bench, I do feel like he's really invested in this. And I think that has to be because there's an understanding that there is a light at the end of this bench tunnel, that there is something out there for him. But, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that it looks even different. And his demeanor is a little bit different from what we saw with Brendan Boston, right? Where we were really asking a lot of questions about where that was going and sort of his demeanor with the locker room and around the team and not playing. So yeah, I do think that Bones is a part of the future and obviously is the more complete player than Brandon Boston Jr. It'll just be really interesting because we don't know how this season's going to end, and that it's going to inform a lot of what we do, obviously, in the off season. And so there's definitely space for him. I would see us with less guards unless we win the whole thing and try to run things back.
All right, real quick, last one. We're gonna do kind of a rapid fire on this one because I do appreciate the question, but I think it's kind of, well, maybe not absurd yet. From Andrew, what should the Clippers do if PG can't agree to an extension? There's been some smoke that he could go to Philly, Pacers, or New York. If he's looking for more money in years than Kawhi, do you consider a trade? I think the Clippers want to have cap space for SGA in the 2027 offseason. Adam, rapid fire, 2 sentences. What do you think about this? Do you consider a trade? Are the Clippers aiming to get Shea in 2027?
Is he a restricted free agent that year? Like, there's no chance they're getting him if that's the case. He's already going to be signed with the OKC Thunder. I think let it go. Let it go.
He's unrestricted.
In 2027?
Yeah, per sport
Well,
trap.
they'll still be able to offer him the 5-year super max.
Yeah.
They'll be able to offer him more than anyone else can. That's
Yeah.
how it works with the new CBA. You can keep your own guys. I'm not too concerned about it at this point. I don't think if he's not, if it's days before the trade deadline and he's still not on his extension, that you're overly concerned about Paul George and what happens this summer. They're trying to win a championship now. He's playing his most efficient basketball now. He's at career highs, I think, in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, free throw percentage. He's been fantastic. So we'll figure it out.
I like we'll figure it out, Will.
I mean, the ball is kind of in Paul's court, right? He can certainly wait out for the max if that's where things are sticking, if that's what the issue is. But yeah, I mean, the trade deadline is in a week, a little over a week. So no, there's no trade to be done. I don't think why would he agree to a sign and trade in the summer? It just doesn't really make any sense. So the ball is fully in Paul's court. And that's kind of where it's on the team too, is like, it puts a lot of pressure on this year, but like, you want a guy to take less than max money, go out there and win a championship. I mean, that's a pretty easy way to get somebody to stay, right? I think that it's going to depend on what the Clippers can do financially to not be too far over the second apron. Because you lose a pick after 3 years, and this is 1 year over the second apron, and I don't know, man, all that stuff kind of makes my head hurt. But if they, if a max isn't in the cards from the Clippers organization, which is not to say that they don't believe he's worth a max, but because of the limitations of what is essentially a hard cap now in the NBA, then the ball's in Paul's court.
I just don't think Kawhi Leonard would have come out post game and say something to the effect of, yeah, I think for the most part, everybody's coming back. And
Right.
that didn't include Paul George.
Yeah. No, he meant Mason Plumlee.
For the most part.
Yeah.
I'm
Gotta read between the
paraphrasing. I
lines
think
there,
I
Adams.
think it
Gotta
was
read
more
between the
concrete than
lines.
that.
He
I
said,
don't wanna
yeah,
misquote
man,
him.
could be the move. All right.
I
Coming
think
up,
everybody's
Did
coming
he
back.
cough and go, "Sir Paul George"?
yeah. Coming up, we're talking Paul George sending children to space camp, and then one bold prediction. It's what he's doing. The ads have been allowed for some people if you're listening, so go ahead and turn it down. We got ads and then space camp talk in 3, 2, 1.
Space camp on the come.
All right, we are back. Adam is disgusting this episode somehow.
It's a phrase, guys.
I've seen no proof. Paul George hosted his Top Golf Classic, which happens every year. It benefits the Paul George Foundation. This event supports one of Paul George's missions, maybe pun intended, providing scholarships for students to attend space camp. Space camp is a very real thing that I thought was fake, and it's called space camp. They have one. I think it's in like Alabama. It's like 6 days. It's very real. It's very cool to get kids interested in STEM, but the name space camp is very funny. Also space camp, or PG loves space. He's had space in his shoes, like themed shoe things before. I don't know. Adam, are you good at golf? Would you have been able to show out at the Top Golf Paul George thing?
Horrible.
Why isn't it a real golf tournament? Sorry to interrupt, but like, why isn't it
Easier
just
to
a real
organize.
golf tournament? Huh?
Probably cheap. You don't have to rent out a whole course.
It's kind of lame. It's lame.
Okay. It's the middle of the season, man.
Could have been straight up mini golf.
You're gonna pretend to play an already kind of lame sport. No disrespect, but come on.
I didn't realize you had so much heat for charitable events.
Why don't you just make it a pong tournament?
That would be tight too.
The game, not actual.
How about a ping pong tournament like Clayton Kershaw does every year?
Yeah.
No, because you're not playing the real sport. You're doing the imitation of the sport.
Well, Will's very sour on the Paul George Foundation and their efforts to send children to space camp. Out of all the Clippers, who would be the best candidate for space camp, do you think? I think Zoo's off the list. He's much too large.
Yeah, I don't think he can fit in there.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I think it has to be the smallest guy, right? Is that Bones?
Well, he's tall though.
He's tall, he's wiry, but who else?
Short Norm?
Moon? Oh, it's Moon in
Xavier
space
Moon.
camp,
Well,
of course.
of
Come
course.
on.
There we go, Xavier Moon. And maybe Zoo just for comedic effect. Zoo
We're
and
gonna
zero
need
gravity.
a bigger shuttle.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna need a bigger boat.
Zoo and zero gravity would be hilarious. Kawhi would also probably be a good astronaut.
Can I just clarify something really quick? On the come, the origin of it, the genesis, is from betting on cards that may come in the future. It's a
like
poker
roulette
thing.
Okay.
Betting on cards that may come in the future, like betting on Bones Highland. He's on the come. That's
If you want to make that your catchphrase, man, no one's gonna stop you.
It's not mine. It literally has been around for centuries.
You said it 10 times this episode. It sounds like it's maybe starting to be your catchphrase.
I'm just glad I somehow escaped getting that nickname under my tag here on YouTube.
Hey,
to this point,
a lot of time left. Actually, not very much time left. All right. The first.
Also,
half
sorry for making fun of Paul George's event.
you
right.
hate it. You will not.
The message is wonderful. And honestly, the outreach that he does is wonderful. Paul George does a lot of great things, and he does get clowned on sort of an unfair amount for the good that he does.
Yeah, space camp. You think? Space camp is funny to you?
No, space camp is very serious to me.
I'm gonna tell you, in space, no one can hear you scream. Well,
that's very true. All right, one bold second half prediction to close this episode out. The Clippers are rolling right now, except for the defensive side of the ball. Will, what is your bold second half prediction? Regular season.
Visa Zubats has an even better stretch than he's had thus far to end out the season.
Fucking A, hell yeah. All right, Adam.
That was badass. The Clippers have a winning record in March.
Oh, all right. That is a bold prediction.
They have to, though.
Brother, I was
Not
saying
according
that,
to somebody.
I was saying that in November. I was saying that in November.
I can't believe we are now actually almost there. Like it just time, man. I don't understand it. Need to go to Paul George Space Camp.
Well, yeah, is there a Paul George time camp? Where you?
Well, I'm a casual, so I could use it.
I'm gonna go. Wow, you guys had two really good ones. I'm gonna go. Terrence Mann has 3 20-point games in the second half of the season for the Clippers.
That's spicy.
Prediction. And then Russ shoots another 3 with a shoe off, makes it again.
Continues to be 100%.
Continues to be 100% from 3 with 1 shoot.
Balances out the shot.
There we go. He might need it. That about wraps it up. We have some updated Give No Quarter stats per John Rodriguez. Thank you to John for doing this. 42 games, 168 total quarters possible, 1 overtime game. The Clippers have won 95 quarters. They have lost 68 quarters. So we each owe 68 quarters to the fund that no one has given us something to donate to yet. YouTube, put a comment for what we should donate it to. But that's
Is that why Kawhi is not an all-star game starter?
Well, they were like, look, because we can quantify this, you guys have really messed this up. Like, this should not have been your slogan. That's $17 each.
I was gonna say we each owe a hearty $17.
Yeah, damn.
Clippers, stop losing quarters, guys.
Is the charity Paul George's Space Camp? Who are you giving it to?
Yeah, honestly, should we just give it to the Paul George?
Will should have to at least.
Yeah, we'll make Will do it at a Top Golf event.
Can I give Paul George my $17 cash?
I hope
do I have to
write a check? Or
do I have to write a check?
Put it in like a vanilla envelope.
It's a big check that you're writing out in front of him.
I give the novelty check.
Yeah. We are going to have some double dips for y'all on Friday and Saturday, maybe a live on Saturday. Who knows? The weekend lives have been fun. Will, did you have fun on the press box the other day? That was a good time. Jesus Christ. I can't get excited for anything. Full episode out on Sunday, talking the back-to-back and looking towards the week ahead. Will, where could these people review us and maybe subscribe to us?
So you can listen or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you want to rate or review this show, do that over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We love it. We'd love to hear your feedback. It really helps the show out. Also, got to check us out over on YouTube. You can subscribe. That's youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. You can comment literally at any time. You don't even have to leave a rating or review. You can just thumbs down us. You can do whatever the hell you want over there on YouTube. It's lawless.
Please thumbs up the videos. Please do not thumbs down.
Thumbs up the video.
Adam, one more
start fights in the comments.
I mean, yes, thumbs up the video. Start fights in the
riot in the comments.
Fist fight in the parking lot. Adam, some word of positivity for these Clippers fans before this Grammy road trip kicks off.
So many blessings in disguise for this team. And I think Kawhi Leonard not being an all-star game starter is going to be another one. More fuel to the fire for a man who has played like he's possessed out there, a demigod. A Kawhi Leonard on a mission is scary hours for the rest of the league. So maybe the timing is right. They're going on a 7-game road trip, tough back-to-back. I like your player to watch in Kawhi Leonard to see how he responds to getting snubbed. Let's see it.
Let's see it. Fantastic words. We thank everybody. We hope you have a great week. Have a good weekend. Here's to a good road trip. And as always, let's go Clips.